Little boy said, "My mom can't afford bread." That little boy, standing there with tears streaming down his face, didn't cry because he couldn't get something he wanted. He cried because he couldn't get something he needed. Something simple. Something basic. Something most people take for granted every single day. He cried because hunger lives in his home. He cried because he sees his mom skip meals so he can eat. He cried because he feels guilty for just being a child. And that is the most painful truth of all: children are not supposed to carry shame. Children are not supposed to feel responsible for poverty. Children are not supposed to apologize for being hungry. That young boy, fighting his tears at the checkout counter, represents millions. Millions of kids who go to bed hungry. Millions who are told to be patient while their stomachs twist in pain. Millions who learn too early what stress feels like. Hunger is not just the absence of food, it is the destruction of childhood. It is trauma disguised as normal because it happens every day. But what made that moment even more striking was what came next. He stood alone among strangers, surrounded by a world that didn't know his story. Some people judged, some stared, some turned away. But there were others, people whose hearts cracked open at the sight of his suffering. People who could not unsee his tears. Sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they wear leather vests. Sometimes they have tattoos, rough voices, and reputations that make people step aside. People look at men like that and see danger. But that day, those men saw a child's silent cry for help. And they refused to ignore it. They stepped forward not to intimidate, but to protect. Their presence wasn't anger, it was compassion dressed in strength. They didn't ask the boy to explain his family's struggles because pain was already written all over his face. They didn't ask why he was alone because the reason didn't matter. They didn't lecture him about responsibility or tell him to put the bread back. They simply stepped up and said with their actions, "No child should ever suffer like this." They paid for the bread. But they gave him something much greater: dignity. They restored his belief that kindness still exists in this world. They showed him that you can look tough on the outside and still have a heart filled with generosity. That moment teaches us something essential. Compassion is greater than judgment. Humanity is stronger than fear. And love, true love, is found in the courage to care for someone who cannot repay you. We live in a society where people constantly judge others by what they see. They judge the mother for being poor. They judge the boy for crying. They judge the bikers for looking dangerous. They judge the cashier for not knowing what to do. But judgment never fed a hungry family. Judgment never wiped away tears. Judgment never saved a childhood. The world doesn't crumble because of hate alone, it crumbles because of people who look away when love is desperately needed. There is a story behind that boy's tears. A story behind his mother's empty wallet. A story behind every family struggling to get by. Mothers who wake up every day hoping this will be the day they can provide without fear. Fathers who sacrifice their own needs so their kids don't feel poor. Families who feel invisible because society sees their struggle as an inconvenience. But hunger is not an inconvenience. It is a crisis. And that crisis must be answered by every heart that can still feel. If that boy were your son, would you want people to turn away? If that mother were your sister, would you want her to be judged? If hunger knocked on your door, would you want others to shrug and say, "Not my problem"? We must stop acting like suffering belongs only to the sufferer. Because hunger doesn't just destroy stomachs, it destroys hope. It steals childhood dreams. It teaches kids the cruel lesson that life is unfair before they even learn how to spell the word, life. That little boy should be laughing, not crying. He should be eating until he's full, not praying for bread. He should be worrying about toys, school, and sunshine, not bills, prices, and survival. Every child deserves a childhood. Every mother deserves help, not shame. Every family deserves dignity, not pity. We live on a planet overflowing with wealth, resources, and opportunity, and still, a child cries because there isn't enough money to buy bread. How can we call ourselves civilized while our neighbors starve in silence? Be the person who steps forward. Be the person who pays attention. Be the person who chooses kindness instead of comfort. Help isn't always giving money, sometimes it's giving time, a meal, a gesture, a moment of understanding. One act of kindness can save a family from breaking. One moment of humanity can rebuild someone's faith in the world. One loaf of bread can restore the smile of a child who was beginning to forget what happiness feels like. To the boy who cried at the checkout, you are not alone. The world is filled with people who care, even if you haven't met them yet. Your courage to speak up, to say those heartbreaking words, has opened the eyes of many. Your tears have moved hearts that once felt nothing. Your voice has shaken the silence of millions who hide their pain. And to his mother, you are not a failure. You are a warrior. You are fighting battles nobody sees. You are performing miracles every day with what little you have. Your love is louder than poverty. Your pain is real, but so is your strength. To the bikers who helped, you remind us that kindness doesn't depend on appearance. You remind us that heroes come from unexpected places. You showed the world that real strength is using your power to protect the weak. And to everyone listening to this message, let this be the moment you choose to do better. Let this be the day you refuse to look away. Let this be the day you realize that compassion is the greatest form of wisdom. The next time you see someone struggling, remember that little boy's tears. Remember that hunger hurts more than anything. Remember that empathy is the language every heart understands. We cannot save everyone, but we can save someone. And if everyone chooses someone, then eventually, everyone will be saved. So when you walk through life, keep your eyes open. Keep your heart open, because somewhere, a child is praying for a miracle. And maybe, just maybe, you are that miracle. One loaf of bread, one moment of kindness, one decision to care. That is how humanity survives. That is how dignity is restored. That is how pain turns into hope. Let us build a world where no child has to cry at the checkout counter ever again. Let us build a world where hunger is defeated not by governments, but by hearts that refuse to let others suffer. Sharing is not charity, it is our responsibility as human beings. Love is not optional, it is our purpose. And hope is not a luxury, it is a right that every child must have. May we never forget that behind every tear lies a story. Behind every struggle lies a heart that still dreams. And behind every act of kindness lies the power to change a life. The little boy said, "My mom can't afford bread." But because someone cared, that story didn't end in sadness. It turned into a story of unexpected heroes, hidden angels, and the victory of compassion over despair. Let us all be part of such stories. Let us choose kindness today, tomorrow, and every day after. Because a world where children cry for food is not a world we should accept. A world where a mother fears the checkout line is not a world we should settle for. A world where hunger exists while kindness is available is not a world we should allow to continue. May we rise. May we help, may we care, and may every child have bread, not just for the stomach, but for the soul.